Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. My name is Tim Wheaton, and we are the MMA Sucka podcast. I am joined, as always, by the editor at MMA Sucka, Frazer Crone. Frazer, how's everything today?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you. We started off last week with a string of 10 UFC cards in a row. There's UFC every weekend, so there's no complaining from anyone. I'm sure after the 10 weeks we may be saying, we want a week off, but there's plenty for us to talk about. We've got obviously the UFC card to break down. Now we've got another UFC card pay-per-view to look forward to. So there's going to be plenty for us to talk about.
Oh, definitely. And you know what, the card last week, as much as you and I were kind of dunking on it and being like, this is a pretty weak card, there wasn't a ton of surprises, but I think it was a fairly entertaining card. Movsar got the unanimous decision victory, as we expected. Alexander Volkov performed. He exceeded expectations, getting a first-round stoppage. Whether it was fair or not, he still got a first-round stoppage on paper. What did you think of the event that we just had last week?
Yeah, I think it was, like you say, it was on paper, it was a bit meh. But it actually it played out quite well. In the main event, it kind of played out how we said it would up until the stoppage. There were plenty of leg kicks. Volkov was trying to keep the range. Biggie Boy was trying to counter off Volkov's leg kicks. And that's kind of what happened for the first 2 minutes. And then obviously the Volkov caught him in that exchange. I think it was a short left hook that he caught him with, and it rocked Rozenstruik. But the stoppage for me, was it an early one? I mean, I think if Biggie Boy hadn't got up straight away, we would have called it a good stoppage. But because he got up straight away, people are debating whether it was an early stoppage. But the visuals weren't good. He knocked him. He punched his gum shield out. He knocked him down. Biggie Boy is in a sort of crumple on the floor. And the referee stepped in. I don't, like I say, I think if Rozenstruik would have just, accepted the loss and sat on the floor for a little bit longer, no one would be questioning it. But for me, I don't think it was an early stoppage. Would I like to see it again? Again, it still doesn't really do much for the division. No. And I don't want to see that one again. But I think the real talking point was the Evloev fight from that whole fight card. It's a really good performance from him. Again, what we said on the show last week, that Evloev is legit, but in my opinion, he's deluded if he thinks he's gonna get a title shot next, or even be in that title picture. Unfortunately, it's a really good performance, but he's yet to get a finish in the UFC.
Yeah,
and he's not fought anyone inside the top 10 yet. I think Ige may have been ranked number 10. Let me just double check that. But with the great, Dan Ige was ranked number 10.
Right.
And he had opportunities to finish that, seemingly with the rear naked choke in the second, but wasn't able to finish that. I think Evloev versus Arnold Allen for me is the next fight.
Cool. Arnold Allen. Let's get it back in there. I love that Arnold Allen. He's super talented.
Exactly. But you've got guys ahead of Movsar Evloev that I think will be tough fights. And Bryce Mitchell, will he look to take Bryce Mitchell down? Because we know what Bryce Mitchell's ground game's like. That's a risky fight for Evloev. Giga Chikadze, on the stand-up, he's
better than him. He beats him
considerably better than him, but can he take him down? There's fights above him. Unfortunately for Evloev, from what we've seen, I think the top 4, Holloway, Ortega, Rodriguez, and Calvin Kattar, all beat him. Arnold Allen and Josh Emmett are tough fights for him.
Yep.
We'll have to see what Korean Zombie, it came out this week that he won't actually be retiring as we thought he might. So, featherweight's exciting, but I do think, unfortunately, he is deluded if he thinks he's getting a title shot anytime soon, because there's killers above him.
No, if Dan Ige is not a contender, like Dan Ige wasn't in discussion of getting a title shot even when he was on a little win streak last year or anything like that.
Exactly.
Odie Osborne gets a really nice first round victory, but I think Karolina Kowalkiewicz, we just feel, she was so emotional after this victory. It meant so much to her to earn this victory. What else did you see on this card that you like?
Yeah, I think I've, in my notes, I put Erin Blanchfield and Karolina Kowalkiewicz are the standouts for me. I mean, we kind of shit on the Kowalkiewicz-Herrig fight last week, but because, let's be honest, on paper, it's not a fight that we needed to see. We weren't. No one was lusting after that rematch, but the fight played out, and it was a really good fight, actually. I thought Kowalkiewicz looks really, really solid in that fight. Obviously now training at ATT. She left Shark Top team in Poland and moved over to America to train. We wrote an article a while back that she was training with Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in Poland. So obviously that's just helped to level up. And, you know, she is a feel-good factor in the division. You know, she's harmless. She doesn't trash talk.
Yeah.
And everyone wanted to see her get that victory. It's a shame for Felice Herrig, who we saw obviously retire after the bout. But for me, if you're looking at the career of Felice Herrig, she could have been so much better. You know, she's got she's got, you know, she was on a 4-fight win streak at one point before she fought Karolina Kowalkiewicz the last time.
Yeah.
But she's just never really been able to put it all together. If you know, I can't remember a Felice Herrig fight other than the Courtney Casey fight, and I only remember that because she was flipping her off in the middle of the fight. You know, it's for Herrig now. Obviously, she's got two finish losses on her record back to back, and obviously we have seen her retire now. But you know, she's 37. She's got an OnlyFans career outside of the sport by the looks of her Instagram. So obviously she's transitioning over into that. You know, fair play to her, because I don't, you know, at 14 and 10, she was never going to make another run at the title. But she was always that sort of, well, for the longest time, she was a gatekeeper to the top sort of 10 or 15. But yeah, it's not gone quite the way she maybe would have planned. But like I say, I'm happy for Karolina Kowalkiewicz to get that win, and you know, hopefully now she can crack on, get another couple of wins, and retire happy, because it was rough to see her on that 5-fight losing streak, especially with them all being finished losses.
Yeah, and she was quite emotional about it. It was really great to see. But as you said, Erin Blanchfield now makes it 3 in a row. So we are likely, like we were speculating last week, Erin Blanchfield, we might be looking at a future top contender here.
For sure. And, you know, the girls that she's beating aren't the girls that you'd expect someone with a, you know, she entered the UFC with a 6-1 record. You know, Sarah Alpha, Miranda Maverick last time out, before JJ Aldrich this time out. These are good fighters. You know, Miranda Maverick is one of our ones to watch from a number of years ago when she entered the UFC. JJ Aldrich is, yeah, she's 11-5 and she's picked up losses, but you know, she's got big wins against Courtney Casey, Vanessa Demopoulos, Gillian Robertson. You know, she's a solid all-rounder, and she was finished by Erin Blanchfield. If I'm Blanchfield, I maybe want to get that loss on my record back. You know, she's got the loss to Tracy Cortez. Tracy Cortez obviously in the UFC now on a 10-fight winning run. And, you know, if I'm Erin Blanchfield, I'm kind of a little bit smug. You know, I think Erin Blanchfield is in a better place in her career than Tracy Cortez. And, you know, Tracy Cortez hasn't really shown us an awful lot in her fights thus far, whereas Erin Blanchfield has. You know, I think Erin Blanchfield is a really, really good prospect. Who's next for Blanchfield? That's where it gets difficult, because above her, a lot of girls are booked, and this killers. You know, she'll. The assumption is she'll break into the top 10. She might even kick Tracy Cortez out of the top 10. So maybe Tracy Cortez will want that one back. But if you just look at the sort of at the division, you know, there's not an awful lot of girls above her that aren't booked. You know, yes, we've got Tracy Cortez. She only fought a few weeks ago, so that could be a fight that we look at. Miranda Maverick, wow, she's already beaten her. Joanne Wood, I don't know if that would be too big a step up. You know, Joanne Wood's ranked number 10, Erin Blanchfield. But, you know, Joanne Wood's that sort of gatekeeper, unfortunately. And then we've got, you know, fan favourite of mine, Casey O'Neill, who I think is going to just be looking up the division. Obviously, she's out at the moment with the torn ACL. She's rehabbing that. But the future's bright for Erin Blanchfield. I think she was one of the standouts on the card. I think she's slightly unlucky maybe not to get a performance of the night bonus, but the performance of the night bonus went to O'Day Osborne, the fight of the night, Mike Trezano and Lucas Almeida, and then Silva got the other fight of the night. Other performance of the night. Yeah. But like I say, I think she was maybe slightly unlucky not to get a performance bonus. But you know, it is what it is, and she'll kick on now. And I expect to see her out maybe August, September time again. You know, she's active and she's young enough to be able to really make a stab at this that flyweight division now.
You know, Karine Silva was someone we kind of skipped over, but I wouldn't mind going back to her and talking about the women's strawweight just a little bit more. She's on she's on 6 wins, 6-fight win streak, all of them by round 1 stoppage so far. Like, she's on a 6-fight round 1 stoppage win streak. 2 of those are in the UFC, which isn't bad. Or they're all at least stoppages, maybe not first round. What do we do with Karine Silva? I think she's a little bit better than we're giving her credit for. She's probably a little bit of a standout in this division. She wasn't overly struggling in this fight. She might be a future prospect. She might be a future contender that we're looking at here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's been fighting at, this fight was obviously at flyweight, so it's another fight that I think, it's another flyweight prospect that I think can really make a stab at the division. You know,
finally, some more prospects.
Exactly, and you know, we've got, if you look at above, you know, you got Melissa Gatto, who just lost to Tracy Cortez, Ariane Lipski, who is coming off, you know, she's on a 1-fight win streak. Montella De La Rosa, Jillian Robertson, again, JJ Aldrich. These girls are all girls that can. My hay fever's playing up today, man. These are all girls. I know, I'm struggling. These are all girls that can really, you know, test these sort of newer, younger fighters who have got a lot of UFC experience. And I think, you know, like you say, with Silva, with Blanfield, you've still got Macy Barber, who's technically still a prospect. You know, she's only 22, 23. Casey O'Neill. I think after the women's flyweight division was created, it's soon becoming one of the, you know, in 5 years' time, it's probably going to be one of the most competitive divisions in the sport.
Yeah,
because we've got all these younger prospects coming through.
It took so long to get here, though. It took way too long. Do you want to take a break?
No, I'm good, man. I'm good. It's just my hay fever's playing up today. It's all good.
Just getting emotional thinking about the future.
I know. I'm just so happy about the flyweight division. It's been so long, and it just makes me cry, man.
It has been a while, but finally we actually have some rising prospects in the division, some talented fighters here and there. Do you think it'll be a fun division in the future, or do we just think like, oh, we're going to swap out 2 top 3 names for 2 other top 3 names and that's it? Or are we going to have some depth?
I think it's, you know, it's trending towards depth. All depends on Valentina Shevchenko. Obviously, we'll go into talk about her fight this weekend.
Yes,
you know, later on in the show. But when she retires, it's wide open. As long as she's in the flyweight division, I think she is the flyweight division. You know, it's just like Amanda Nunes is the featherweight division. There's no competitors around Amanda Nunes for her to fight. Whereas with Shevchenko, there's constant competitors for her to fight, but they're not competitive fights. You know, she just dominates each and every person she faces. We'll go into talk about her obviously later on in the show, but
yeah,
you know, you've got Macy Barber, Miranda Maverick, Erin Blanchfield, Silva, Casey O'Neill, Montella De La Rosa still on the outside. And then you've got the girls that are now, you know, still ranked, you know, Santos, who fights for the title this weekend, isn't old. You know, you've got really top prospects, you know, Jessica Andrade, I think she's back at flyweight. No, so she's dropped down to strawweight now. But then, you know, Alexa Grasso, Manon Fiorot, and Caitlin Chikagian obviously booked for
that's a great
UFC
one.
Paris.
That's actually a good fight.
Exactly. You know, these are all girls in and around. Tracy Cortez isn't old. You know, these are all girls in and around the top 15 that with 2 or 3 fights in 2 or 3 years could be in that title picture, in that top 5 picture. Whereas, unfortunately, you compare that to sort of, you know, strawweight. You've got Carla Esparza, who is an aging champion. Rose Namajunas, we won't see her in a title fight anytime soon. Weili Zhang, she's already been in a title, you know, in the title picture for the majority of her career.
Yes.
Marina Rodriguez and Mackenzie Dern, now they're 2 prospects that are exciting, as is Yang Xiaonan. Then you've got Jessica Andrade, who's already been in the title picture. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, that could put herself in the title picture. It's by no means stale, but there's only 2 girls in that sort of top 5, top 10 that you could really see making a real push and being a tough matchup for the champion. And
that's true.
You know, that's not a bad thing, but you'd much prefer it like flyweight and you know, men's bantamweight. Who's gonna fight for the title next? We simply don't know. After Santos and Shevchenko fight, the assumption is if Santos wins, it'll be a rematch. If Shevchenko wins, who's next? I think we'll have to wait till UFC Paris to find out who will be the next contender for the flyweight division. But
yeah,
it's up in the air at the moment. Whereas, you know, we know that the winner of Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk is more than likely going to get a title shot.
Yeah,
But,
it's the same people. It's like the same 4 people just on rotation for 5 years now, right?
Exactly. It's like the welterweight division. It's exciting, but it's been Jorge Masvidal twice, Colby Covington twice, Gilbert Burns once. If he would have beat Hamzat, maybe him twice.
Yeah.
Now we've got Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards, who aren't big needle pushers, that are probably deserving of a title shot sometime soon. But because they're not the big needle pushers, they don't even get a look in, which is a shame really for them. But it all comes with, you can't just win fights. You've got to win fights in an entertaining manner, and then you've got to rock the mic. You've got to be active on social media. That's the way MMA is at the moment. And the flyweight division is, I want to see, as much as we're sort of combat sports snobs, as you like to call us,
we are.
I want to see a lot more of the flyweight girls on Instagram calling each other out, because that's the way it goes at the moment. If you can't get that viral 10-second clip of you in an interview saying, Macy Barber want you next, or Erin Blanchfield, me and you, we need that rematch.
Yeah.
You're not going to sell over to the mainstream. And that is something that the UFC can clip up, put on a, let's be honest, Sean O'Malley isn't the best fighter in the world. Yes, he's got knockout power, but his first 3 or 4 fights went to decision. But he is a captivating personality where he's got that Floyd Mayweather effect. You either want to see him knock someone out or you want to see him get knocked out.
Yeah.
But you're going to tune in to watch him.
Yeah.
And, I think a couple of the flyweight girls maybe need that sort of social media push to really make them into the stars that they can be, because they got the talent, but whether they've got the whole package is yet to be seen.
Well, yeah, and I think as much as we complain about it, that is the reality of the sport, and that part kind of sucks about it. I'm going to keep complaining about it, but like, it worked for Juliana Pena. Like, that got her a championship title shot off one win, and then she won the fight, and they just kind of kept pressing on the gas. It's just been on the accelerator for Pena ever since. She is on every daytime talk show. She's on every interview. Like, that stuff, like, go and practice your lines in the mirror. Go and do all that stuff, because it does work. And I think it's lame as hell, but the other flip side of that is that it absolutely does work. It is an important part of the sport.
Yeah, she's on tough now against Amanda Nunes. Yeah. Who would have thought that? We all wanted to see sort of, there was rumors of Darren Till and being on tough against Uriah Hall, and there's far better people, better personalities to be on tough. Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, for example, that would have absolutely banged.
But, how are those two guys coaches?
Exactly. But Juliana Pena crossed over when she finished Amanda Nunes. She crossed over into that mainstream.
Yeah,
and it's paid dividends for her, to be honest, and it's probably paying dividends as well for her.
Yeah, like quite literally, she may never win a fight in her career, but she's going to be one of the bigger names in women's combat sports for the rest of her career. If she chooses to fight even 5 years or 10 years from now, she's still a name, and she might go winless.
Exactly, and she's always going to have that potential of the biggest upset in UFC history.
Yeah,
that's, you can't ever take that away from her. So it's like Matt Serra. What do you remember Matt Serra for? Knocking out GSP.
Yeah.
You don't remember the fact that he had multiple fights with Matt Hughes and Sean Scherr. No, he knocked out GSP.
Yep.
That's what you remember Matt Serra for. And now he's a UFC Hall of Famer. Would he have been at UFC Hall of Fame if he hadn't knocked out GSP? It's highly, highly doubtful.
The guy had, I love my little meatball Matt Serra. But let's move forward onto UFC 275. Now, speaking of, you're not predicting, it sounds like you're already looking over Taila Santos. And I agree. This is one of the weaker contenders I think we've seen. And we'll talk about this fight, and then we'll jump to the other UFC 275 fights, which are some real fun ones, some good bangers here and there. But Taila Santos and Valentina Shevchenko isn't one of the good ones.
On paper, Taila Santos is legit, 19-1. She went on a 10 fight first round. Sorry, she went on a 10 fight win streak.
Yeah,
most of which came in the first round. That's kind of where I am with Taila Santos. Is who is she for?
Yeah.
She lost the UFC debut by split decision. I'm writing an article this week. Will be going up on the site. 3 keys to victory for Valentina. It's difficult to see where Taila Santos is bad, because she hasn't fought a lot of mixed martial artists. She's fought a lot of quite one-dimensional girls. Outside of her main event her debut that was back in 2019 against Molly Mccann. Molly Mccann is a boxer who can wrestle but doesn't, particularly like to wrestle. She's a scrapper. She's a brawler. Gillian Robertson will do all she can, as will Roxanne Modafferi, to get the fight to the ground. She'll grind it in the clinch and look to get the fight to the ground. Both Robertson and Modafferi they have a fairly limited stand-up game, but it works for them to try and get it to the ground. Joanne Calderwood, or Joanne Wood as she's known now, is a Muay Thai fighter who will fight in the clinch, but as soon as you take her down, she's limited. They're the 4 wins that Taila Santos has got. So Valentina Shevchenko has to mix this up and has to wrestle and strike with Taila Santos and mix up the pacing of the fight. Santos has never entered a 4th or 5th round, whereas Shevchenko has gone to the decision, I think, 4 or 5 times across 5 rounds. That is, and I think it's going to be a fairly straightforward. I don't see her finishing Santos unless you get Santos tired and she maybe finishes it late on. But I think Santos is more solid than some of the competitors that Shevchenko has faced. No disrespect, but Lauren Murphy, Jessica Eye, Liz Carmouche are fairly, I think they were kind of pushed into title shots because, they deserve them, but they were pushed into them. Realistically, they should have had 2 or 3 more fights beforehand. But, she faced Caitlin Chikagi, who I think is really good, Jennifer Meyer, who I think is really good, and Jessica Andrade, who, is really good. As her record speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I don't think Taila Santos has got what it takes to really trouble Valentina Shevchenko, unfortunately, for her.
No, it's a tough fight to really find because we usually, when you're breaking down tape and watching fights, you're saying like, okay, I know who this fighter's facing. Let's watch their fights and figure out what advantages they would have. Taila Santos, unless she's going to come with a bunch of new skills in this fight, this is a Valentina Shevchenko display. Like, this is just, she gets to show some of her best work. She gets to have fun in there. So good on her. And she gets another title defense. And then every Monday we have to talk about with dummies about hey, is Valentina Shevchenko the greatest of all time woman? She's just beating warm bodies. They're not that skilled of bodies.
Exactly. Yeah, you can beat. It's like with boxing, we'll talk about the George Kambosos Devin Haney fight later on, and with that fight, Devin Haney had fought some top guys, but never fought a top guy. Then he goes and puts on a clinic against George Kambosos. With Shevchenko, she fought some top women, but Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she was just bigger than Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Simply put, Jessica Eye, not a top girl. Jessica Eye at one point, in my opinion, should have been cut from the UFC. She was on a 4-fight losing streak, and now she's on a 3-fight losing streak. With 3 wins sort of littered in the middle before the loss to Shevchenko, I don't quite see how Jessica Eye ever got herself into that situation where she was in a title shot. But it is what it may be. UFC 238 where they did face, maybe that just needed another title fight on it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think Caitlin Chikagian's the outlier because I think Caitlin Chikagian can be world class, but she's just she's just not world class, if that makes sense. She's got the potential, she's got all the attributes to be world class, but she just isn't world class at the moment. But this fight against Manon Fiorot, if she wins that fight, she's the next contender. If Fiorot wins the fight, she's the next contender. If Chikagian wins it, she'll be on a 5-fight win streak, and if Fiorot wins it, she'll be 5-0 in the UFC and on a 10-fight win streak, with her only loss coming to Leah McCourt, Bellator's sweetheart Leah McCourt. But I think, going back to UFC 275, I think if you're in the arena, it's maybe a go to the bar kind of fight, because it is going to be, in my opinion, I think it's going to be a point fighting victory for Shevchenko.
I've enough. Yeah, of course. We're talking about the validity of this fight. That's kind of the fight. That's all I want to say on it. Let's move to the fun light heavyweight matchup. I'll rescind my previous statement to cancel this whole division. Let's get into it. I like this fight because it's fun. The thing is that even though I think we're going to look back in 10 years at this light heavyweight division and be like, that was clearly the dark age of the light heavyweight division after Jon Jones had left, at least the guys in it were all fun. You know what I mean? Of like Jan Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira, and Jiří Procházka. Ton of fun. Just like fun personalities and fun style fighters. Jiří Procházka is a forward action fighter who is just chaotic in there. He's punching trees 500 times every day. He's doing weird stuff in like 24 hours a day, just throwing 1-2s. He's out there screaming and meditating. Awesome stuff. Glover Teixeira knows he's old. He knows he's slow. So he says, like, after this fight, I am retired. Let's break down this fight a little bit more. Are we going to see a new champion walking out at UFC 275? Or does Glover do what he does best? How do you square up this matchup?
Yeah, again, I've got an article coming out this week, keys to victory using video analysis this time rather than just sort of, my Valentina Shevchenko article is just 3 keys to victory for Valentina. This one looks at 3 keys to victory for Glover, but looks at some video analysis.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main things for me is Glover, to retain his style, has to avoid the uppercut. He's been knocked out by the uppercut or caught with the uppercut multiple times. If you remember that Alexander Gustafsson knockout, that was 3 uppercuts in a row before a looping right hook. The Anthony Johnson 10 or 13 second knockout on the Conor McGregor Nate Diaz undercard. That was an uppercut. Again, when he faced Arn Kutalaba, landed multiple uppercuts on him and was able to eventually get the victory. Now, Jiří Procházka, we haven't got an awful lot of UFC footage on him because he's only had the 2 fights. But he does that strange thing that we saw against Volkan Ozdemir, where he sort of leans forward, but he holds his own wrist sort of at his waist. Now, Glover Teixeira has learned boxing when the punches are coming at you from a closed guard, that you sort of almost like you throw and then I'll close my guard. And, if the punches are coming from underneath Glover's eye line, that uppercut's going to be able to land even easier. And I think that can become a key strike for Jiří Procházka. I think Procházka, unfortunately for Glover, I think Procházka maybe finishes Glover, and I don't see it going too late either, to be honest.
I've kind of come around because originally I was squaring this up of like whoever kind of imposes their game plan first, I think gets it done. Because I always kind of imagined Jiří being weak on the ground because he struggled against guys like Vadim Nemkov and Muhammad Lawal. But going back and watching those fights, he was competitive against both of those guys. Like, especially against Vadim Nemkov, he was rolling with him. Like, he was constantly having top position. He would lose it, being able to counter it. So even back in like 2015, when he originally fought Bellator champion Vadim Nemkov, he was still rolling with him. He was still able to counter a lot of those positions that he was struggling in. So I agree with you. Especially on the feet, Jiří has a major advantage. I'm going to pick Jiří to win this fight, but you're picking it by knockout. What exciting, weird knockout is Jiří Procházka going to be bringing to Singapore? Like, what weird thing do we see?
Well, that's the thing, I agree with you, Glover needs to get this fight to the floor because Jiří is so... I don't even know if he's strong on the feet. He's so outlandish on the feet that he could land a strike from... he could land a left hook from a spinning back fist missed into a left hook. You know what this guy's like. Well, you don't know what he's like. That's the problem. Yeah. And I watched his fight from 2014, the draw that he had. I'm going to butcher the spelling of the pronunciation, but Mikhail Mccann.
Sure.
Not actually too bad, actually. Yeah. That was a draw that he had in 2014. Now, in the final round, both men were tired, and that was only a 3-round fight, but both men were tired. And yet Jiří was defending takedowns with relative ease after being taken down a couple of times in the fight itself. So his takedown defense kind of stands up for as long as he stood up. But I think, if you look at the stats, he lands, I think, around 7 strikes per minute. Yes, 7.19 strikes landed per minute throughout the UFC career thus far, and that doesn't really include ground and pound. A lot of guys sort of up their stats when they're landing multiple ground and pound. We haven't seen him on the ground an awful lot. If he looks to throw, he's landing 7 strikes per minute, so he's probably throwing 10 to 12 strikes per minute, or if not more. Glover needs to utilize these long, extended combinations of Jiří Procházka to try and get him to the floor, because he's not going to take a step back, Procházka. And I think even if Glover manages to box with him and land on him, he's still not going to take a step back. He is going to he could be wobbled, Procházka, he'll maybe take 2 steps backwards, and then he'll sort of reset and carry on. He's got a reach advantage of 4 inches over Glover Teixeira. An inch in height is nothing really at this division, at this size. But Procházka, I do think, has a tendency to get excited in there, and especially in the main is in a main event as of a pay-per-view for the title. I think he could overthrow Teixeira, could get him down, and that could be the case for 2 or 3 rounds even.
Mm-hmm.
But it just, for me, Glover doesn't take a shot as well as maybe you'd expect someone with that many fights. He's got 40 fights. Sorry, he doesn't take a shot too well, and Jiří Procházka lands a lot of shots. So I think Jiří is probably going to get the knockout. And like you say, it could be by spinning back elbow, it could be by a knee, or it could just be by a simple 1-2 hook. We don't know, but I think Jiří Procházka does get the finish in this one.
I think so too, but I do want to give some credit to Glover because he's glacially slow and he gets knocked down in all of his fights. Like I think Jan nearly knocked him down. Thiago definitely knocked him down. Anthony Smith was winning the fight, like for at least 2 to 3 rounds before he really flipped there. He is glacially slow, but like good for him for rising to this apex of this division. But yeah, I think it's going to be consistent that I'm going to pick against Glover in all of his fights for however long he fights, whether it's another year, whether it's a couple of months, whether it's a couple of weeks. I'm always going to pick against him because he's so slow. But I don't know, he could still just like crawl and get this fight done. He's good at, once he gets a position, he doesn't really give it up very easily. He looks like you're dying.
I'm really struggling with my hay fever today. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know, but
he looks so sad.
I look like I've been jabbed in the face. That's the problem. I don't envy any of these guys getting jabbed in the face for a living because we're only about half an hour into the pod today, and I am struggling. But getting jabbed in the face for 25 minutes by someone as big as Jiří Procházka, that would
do it.
I don't look forward to being Glover Teixeira on Monday morning. Let's just say that. But no, with Glover, if I'm picking the fight with my heart, I'm picking Glover. What a story it was, especially when he defeated Jan Blachowicz. But Blachowicz is a routine kickboxer. You can get plenty of sparring partners in to mimic Jan Blachowicz's style, to mimic Thiago Santos' style. Santos is a power puncher, and he swings with 100% for 2.5 rounds before he gets tired.
Yep.
Who do you get in to mimic Jiří Procházka at that size? There's a Zabit Magomedsharipov is probably the best that I could sort of say is similar to Jiří with all these spinning attacks and crazy movement and whatnot. But he's a 145-pound fighter. These guys are Jiří will weigh 215, 220 in there on Saturday night, and I don't quite know who Glover can get in to mimic his style. But at the end of the day, I think it may just be a changing of the guard. And I don't want to see Glover retire after this, but it depends how Glover looks. It's his first fight as champion. How will he take that pressure? Because we all assume that the pressure won't get to Glover Teixeira. We don't know that. It may sort of get to him. And, you've got a title fight before him, and then you've got the Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Zhang Weili fight before that.
Let's get into it. Let's jump right to it.
Yeah, that's the thing. We've got plenty of big fights before him, and if Joanna and Weili put on an absolute fight of the year again, that could put more pressure on Glover to perform. The crowd's going to be amped up, and it might put pressure on Glover. But I think he either needs to use his experience and kind of old man Jiří, or it's going to be a short and long night for Glover at the same time.
Yeah, I think this is a Jiří win all day long. I like Jiří in this fight a lot. I think that's a good one. But let's jump to the real fun one. The former fight of the year, the last one that we had before COVID lockdown. So this one, who knows what's going to happen after this fight. But we have Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk 2. The first one was a razor close split decision victory for Zhang. This was a fight of the year. I squaring this one up, I think it's just going to be nothing but fun. But Joanna has fought for a while. I think that is the biggest talking point. I think, what kind of shape is she going to be in? Is she going to be 100%? Because if she takes half a step slower than she was, this is a Zhang fight all day. Zhang has been fighting nothing but top contenders since Joanna stepped back. What do you think of this fight? How you doing, man? You want to take a break?
No, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. I just take my glasses off, so I'm having to squint at my screen a little bit, but we'll power through it. No, I completely agree, and Joanna's historically had really good takedown defense, especially with her strawweight reign when she was champion. Before, obviously, Rose and she went up to flyweight, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, to face Shevchenko, and then she got the 2 losses to Rose. The loss at flyweight has kind of got an asterisk next to it, and the loss to Weili last time out.
Mm-hmm.
Weili came out last time when she faced Rose as a wrestler, looking to wrestle Rose as much as possible. How is Joanna's wrestling defense gonna hold up? Because I can see Weili Zhang wrestling with Joanna again in this fight. Looking to get her down, looking to hold her down, and looking to dominate the fight down there and make it quite boring.
Mm-hmm.
I think we also have to, like you say, if she lost even that half a second of speed, I think it's going to make a massive difference to her game, because she was never a power puncher.
Yeah.
She was always in out and quick, land 1-2s and get out, and land a leg kick and get out of the way. If she's lost that half a second of speed, how much does that take away from her game? Is she just an average fighter then? You've also got to question the weight cut. She's always struggled to make 115.
Mm-hmm.
And she hasn't made it now for over 2. It's a little over 2 years. So, how is the weight cut going to affect her? Is she going to make weight easily or not?
She had struggled some fights in the past. Sometimes she's fine, but sometimes she struggles.
Exactly, and if you don't make weight for 2 odd years, how much weight did she put on over that 2 years that she's now having to dial it in? I know we've had this fight, or her return has been booked for quite a prolonged period of time, but how much is the weight cut going to affect her? Because yes, it's only a 3-round fight, but Weili Zhang can work for 3 rounds.
Yeah,
and how much did that Weili Zhang fight take out of her against for Weili? We saw her face Joanna, and then we saw her get knocked out inside 2 minutes, a minute against Rose. The fight immediately after. We don't know how much that fight actually took out of Joanna Jędrzejczyk, because we haven't seen her since then. But like you say, it was arguably, in my opinion, it's the best women's fight to ever take place. One of the fights of the year in 2020, and I'm looking forward to them going at it again.
Yeah, and I think, like you, I don't really have a hard pick on this one. We'll have to see what shape both of these two are coming in at. But I really look forward to it, because I think both of them obviously are championship quality. I'm a huge fan of Joanna. I have been for like most of the history that I've known her. Yeah, I'm hoping for a Joanna victory here, because I like her. But we'll see how it goes. I like Zhang a lot as well. Looking down the card, I thought Manel Cape was out due to USADA suspension. How is he fighting Rogerio Bontorin?
Yeah, because he had the fight cancelled, I think, the day of.
Because of USADA or something like that. Didn't he get caught for something?
I mean, that was the 23rd of April card, and as per Tapology, it says tested positive for turinabol metabolite. But he's back.
Yeah, it's like a steroid. Turnabol is like the steroid. That's Soviet era steroid.
But maybe because this fight is in Singapore, the commission is slightly different. I'm not really sure why he's able to fight on this card. I really don't know how. But yeah, I agree. I thought he was out. He arguably should have been suspended. But it is what it is.
I mean, it's an okay fight. Manel Cape probably wins this fight, especially if he's on Turnbull coming into it. Even if you're on Turnbull for your training camp and then you cycle off of it, you still get the benefits 6 months later. Yeah. Rogerio Bontorin is not on a. Was he the one that we talk about of man, who at the UFC does this guy Why does the UFC hate this guy? Because they keep giving him these.
If you look at his records, Ray Borg, who at the time was fairly decent, Kaikara France. Then he faced Matt Schnell, and Matt Schnell was on a tear at the time, and Brandon Royval, and now Manel Cape. I mean,
this guy's not liked.
I don't know who he's pissed off, but he's only 30, so he could have a win over Manel Cape probably could boost him up the rankings a little bit. He's ranked number 8. Cape is ranked number 14, so it's a big step down for him. But it's a good fight.
Yeah, Manel Kape's always exciting. He's a very I feel like he's either going to finish you in the first round or he's just going to be boring for the whole fight. So it's a dice roll with the kid. And I think I thought the UFC really liked him at first, but at this rate, who knows what they're doing. So
yeah, for sure.
What else do you see on UFC 275 that's worth talking about? We got Brandon Allen's back. That's a good one. Sung Woo Choi is finally back, I think, after a little bit of a layoff, if I'm thinking correctly. Who else do you like in this one?
Yeah, I think obviously we've got Jake Matthews versus Andre Fiala. Fiala's a guy, he seems to fight every couple of weeks. This will be his fourth fight in 2022. He fought January, April, May, and now June. He's got 2 first-round finishes in his last 2 fights, and I'm here for it. Facing Jake Matthews is no easy task at all.
Yeah.
But the one that I'm really keeping an eye out for, that I think everyone should keep an eye out for, is Jack Dela Madalena. He's only 1-0 in the UFC, but he's on an 11-fight win streak. Came in off the Contender Series and on his debut knocked out Pete Rodriguez, who I think was a late notice replacement. He was meant to face Waller Alves, but Alves withdrew. He looked phenomenal in that, and now he's got a big step up in competition facing Ramazan Emeev. Emeev.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
He's solid all round. He's got the decent stand up, and then if he gets in trouble, bang, he'll shoot a takedown and get the fight to the floor. I think Madalena gets it done, but it's not easy. But at 25 years old, he's certainly one to keep an eye on. I think he's a 170-pound fighter at the moment. I think at 25 he can move up to 185 without much trouble.
Mm-hmm. And good for him for going 0-2, turning his career around and going 11 straight in a row. Every time I look at the screen. It looks like someone has given you some terrible news every time.
I don't know what's up with it today. It's been fine all morning. As soon as we jump on, it's
that's so funny. Okay, Hyun Ho Tang is also back, and this is another the bantamweight division is just too good. I think both these guys are jockeying and trying to get into the top 15. They're both in a must-win scenario, coming off 1 loss apiece. But yeah, both of these guys are a must-win because they are kind of maybe in the chopping block or coming in the range of being in the chopping block. So that's going to be a competitive one at men's bantamweight. But yeah, it's going to be a good fight card up and down. What's the time zone that we're doing this one in? Is this going to be in the Singaporean time zone? So it's going to be midday for us, or are we doing it in the US time zone? So it's going to be like midnight for Singapore.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But I think I think it's on a US time zone from what I've read, which to me doesn't make sense. Why not just treat fans for once for a pay-per-view? They did that card in Manchester when Bisping fought Henderson, and that was at sort of 4:30 in the morning, which I never understood.
Yeah, I know.
I think you just need to treat fans. But it is what it is. It's again, it's. Are you going to get up in the middle of the night to watch it? If you can watch it on replay, probably not. But
it starts at 3 in the morning. I don't think so.
Exactly, it's a good card, but maybe not a 3 in the morning kind of card.
Yeah, it's got 2 really, really good fights. It's got 3 overall pretty good fights on it. But yeah, it's not a 3 in the morning. I would have liked if they did it in Singapore time, because I think the UFC did it a couple of times and they just didn't like the numbers. But if you're going to go to a local market, go to the local market. What I mean?
They've certainly done. They've done it at Singapore time for the Fight Night cards when Holly Holm fought Betchka Haya. That was sort of a mid-morning, sort of afternoon card for us in the UK. But maybe with a pay-per-view, they want to try and get as many pay-per-views as possible. But this, I think the casual fan doesn't really tune in for this one, unfortunately.
No, I don't think so either. That's 10 a.m. Singapore time. That's not too bad. So if you're going to the arena, you got to set the alarm. But it's just a weird atmosphere to watch fights on a Sunday morning. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. And so 10 o'clock, it'll finish, say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then what do you do?
Their whole day there. Yeah, it's just a weird if you why are you guys going to somewhere else just to put it on for the US fans? It's still the bigger question.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. If you're going to do that, just keep it in the US. There's no benefit to it being in Singapore. Then it's, yes, you break into a new market, but
you're not if you're not servicing the fans.
Exactly.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, maybe we should get out of here, take some pills, take some drugs. So that's it for UFC 275. We covered the last week's up. But can you tell me a little bit more about Devin Haney and Cambosos before we head out of here?
Yeah, Devin Haney this weekend. What a performance! You know, I watched the full fight yesterday on a replay, and Cambosos couldn't get anything off. You know, he just couldn't get it. He was just outclassed. Every time he went to get something off, Devin Haney would bang a jab down the pipe and offset Cambosos. He changed up the pace of the fight well throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's an argument that Haney won every round. There are 2 or 3 contentious rounds that I think were scored for Cambosos, but could have easily been scored for Haney.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's a rematch clause. So, and Cambosos has reportedly looked at activating that rematch clause. I've got no interest in a rematch. Cambosos was outclassed, and he will be outclassed in a rematch. The fight I want to see is Haney versus Lomachenko, because what happens when Haney can't land the jab and is forced to miss over and over and over again?
Yeah,
you know, if he faces someone like a Tank Davis or a Ryan Garcia, he could probably land that jab. Maybe not so often as he did on Cambosos, but he can certainly land the jab. He's not going to land the jab on Loma nearly as much as he did he would on either of those guys or any of those guys. So that's the fight to make for me. But I think the most important thing is Cambosos reportedly got paid $10 million for that fight.
yeah.
I don't even think the entire of the UFC card will get paid $10 million.
Oh God, I think all of the fighters combined for 2022 probably would maybe sneeze at 10 million.
Yeah, and Cambosos, $10 million in his home country, in the Marvel Stadium. I wouldn't even say he didn't show up. He was just struggling to show up with a class of Haney.
Is this the fighter that we expected? Like, this is the fighter that we expected to show up last year when he upset Win, but this is kind of what people said. This is the kind of fighter he is. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I don't think people gave him a lot of respect, and unfortunately, kind of proved them right. He didn't show an awful lot in the Haney fight on Saturday night, but I still think he can come again. Do I think he beats any of the champions at the moment? No. Well, obviously Devin Haney's the undisputed champion, but he doesn't beat Tank. He doesn't beat Loma. He doesn't beat Ryan Garcia. He probably struggles again against Teofimo Lopez. You know, if Lopez goes into that fight a little bit more switched on, there's an argument that he might even beat Cambosos. Yeah. So Cambosos will definitely take a step back. I don't want to see him in a rematch. I've got no interest in that whatsoever, and I want to see Haney versus Lomachenko next.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm surprised that he was struggling with the jab. Wasn't the counter jab the thing that he did so well in the Teofimo Lopez fight? Like, was it just a different style of delivery, or was it just like, I'm partially asleep in this fight?
I think it was the latter, unfortunately, because Haney has an elite jab. There's no denying that. We've seen that in all of his fights thus far. But a jab is a jab at the end of the day. It's coming from the same position. I think he had a couple of inch reach advantage on Tio, so maybe it was coming from slightly further out. But it wasn't just the jab; it was the pace of the jab. He'd throw one jab and then he'd sort of throw the jab and keep the hand out there, and then he'd pour the lead hand and then throw the jab. And I think he just confused Cambosos. And every time Cambosos went to attack, the jab was there in his face, so he had to sort of stop, reset, and then he'd go again, but then be another jab in his face, and then he'd look to go to the body, but Haney would land the hook. So he was constantly offsetting Cambosos throughout, and obviously it paid dividends for Haney because he's now the undisputed lightweight champion.
Yeah, it paid. Yeah, it's a fun timeline for him. So good for him. The division's finally fun. Like, every time these MMA fans are like, boxing's dead, and you guys aren't paying attention. You guys are dumb as hell. Exactly. That's not it at all. It is just starting to get cooking here. All right, so let's get out of here for the week. We'll come back in a week when the pollen index of this nation has gone down a little bit. Maybe we'll... Fingers crossed. All right, Tim Wheaton and Frazer Carone. Frazer, what do you got going on this week?
Yeah, I've got the 2 articles coming out this week. Shevchenko keys to victory and Glover keys to victory using video analysis. So yeah, be sure to check them out on the website. And keep it locked to MMA Sucka because we'll have results, staff picks, everything this week, previews and whatnot.
Awesome stuff. Thanks so much for your time, folks.
Thank you.